Hi guys, welcome back to Spelling and Word Study. My name is Mrs. Rhoades and I'm here to get you started on Unit 26, the OI and OY, OI diphthongs. Please take a second to gather your materials. You will need your teal book open to page 161. You will also need some colorful pens, markers, or crayons. Remember, whatever I mark on my board, you should be marking on your paper. Please save room for a key as well. So last week we started talking about diphthongs. We know that diphthongs are special vowel sounds. They're not short vowels, they're not long vowels. Instead, they're actually made up of two vowel sounds, one sound gliding into another. So last week we talked about ow. And when you make that ow sound in your mouth, you notice it kind of starts off like a short O and glides right into a long U, ow. And we found out that we can make that sound by using OU or OW. OU always gets tucked into the middle of a word. OW usually shows up at the end of a word. Well, this week we're going to learn about another diphthong, and that is oi. Practice saying that, please. Oi. Do you notice that that sound starts off kind of like a long O and then glides into a long E sound? Oi. Good. Well, there are two common ways to make that oi sound. We can use OI or OY. So as we go through our list, I want you to use your eyes to look for the OI or the OY in each word. And I want you to use your ears to listen for that OI sound. Here we go. Broil, cowboy, hoist, joint, moist, ploy, point, spoil, tinfoil, topsoil. Did you hear that oi in each word? Great. So let's start by choosing a color. And I want to go through and I want to look for words that contain OI. So I see the OI in broil. So I'm just going to draw a box around that. If you have a highlighter and you want to color that chunk, you can do that. I see it again in the middle of hoist, in the middle of joint, and in the middle of moist. Over here, I find it in the middle of point, the middle of spoil, the middle of tinfoil, and the middle of topsoil. So notice its position. You never see OI at the end of a word. If you're trying to make an oi sound in the middle of a word, OI is what you need, okay? OI is always tucked in the middle, although it can show up at the beginning. You've probably seen this word before, oil or ointment. So it can show up at the beginning, never at the end, most of the time in the middle. So over here, pink box equals OI diphthong. All right, let's choose another color, and now let's look for OY, okay? OY is also going to say oi. We see it at the end of cowboy. We see it at the end of ploy, and that's it, okay? So notice OY really prefers to hang out at the end of a word. I bet you already knew this because I bet you already know words like boy and toy and joy. And so you've already noticed that that OY chunk is what you want to use when you make the oi sound at the end of a word. So over here, brown box equals OY diphthong. Did you notice a diphthong from last week hiding in here? Yeah, the OW in cowboy. Okay, remember we talked about how OW likes to hang out at the end of a word or the end of a syllable. So cowboy uses an OW diphthong, but of course that's going to make a different sound. That's going to say ow. Okay. Just as a quick review, some of our words this week have final blends, right? Remember, those are two sounds that are two letters that blend together at the end of a word. So we see it in hoist. We see that ST blend. Again, in moist. And I guess that's it. So ST works really nicely with that OI. And then we also see an NT blend at the end of joint and an NT blend at the end of point. Okay, so we've got some rhyming words this week that use the same final blends. So anything in a blue box is a final blend. We spent a lot of time learning about these earlier in the year, so I just wanted to quickly review them. Remember, some of our final blends, like ST, can be used at the beginning of a word, like stop or stick, and some of our final blends, like NT, cannot be used at the beginning of a word, right? You would never see a word starting with nt. Okay, so let's talk about our meanings because we have lots of great vocabulary this week. So starting with broil. If you broil something, that's a verb. It's something you do in the oven. You cook something in the oven under high heat. So you might broil a steak, okay? So cook in the oven. I know it kind of looks like boil. Boil is what you do on the stovetop. If you're going to make spaghetti, you boil the water. But broiling is something you do in the oven under hot temperatures. Sometimes if you're trying to make garlic bread and you want to get it nice and crispy, you might set the oven to broil just for a minute or two. A cowboy, well, that's a noun, right? Now, it's funny because a cowboy is a person who rides horses. So you might be wondering, well, why aren't they called a horse boy, right? A person who rides horses. Well, if we think about the olden days, the main job of a cowboy was to corral or gather all of the cows. They would be in charge of a whole herd of cows, and they would have to get that herd to move from place to place. Maybe they had to move the herd to another field. Maybe they had to take them several miles to the railroad if they were going to get onto the train and be transported somewhere else. Okay, so a cowboy is someone who is in charge of taking care of cows, and they do that by riding horses. To hoist something, that's a verb. To hoist something is to lift it up. We usually use this word to describe things like flags and sails. So when you hoist the sails or you hoist the flag, you're actually using a pulley system. So by pulling the ropes down, the flag or the sails rise. So to hoist something is to lift it up. A joint is a noun. A joint is a place where things meet. A place where things meet. So you have joints in your body. Your knee is a joint. Your elbow is a joint. Your fingers are joints, right? Any place where, like if you think about this joint, the top of your arm and the bottom of your arm are coming together. Where they come together, that's a joint. Sometimes when people get older, they complain of joint pain. You might have heard your grandparents talk about this. They get aches and pains in their knees, their ankles, their elbows, any of those places where body parts meet. Now, you might have heard of another type of joint. Sometimes people talk about their favorite pizza place or their favorite restaurant, right? They say, oh, I'm going to go to my favorite pizza joint this weekend. Well, that's also a place where instead of things meeting, that's where people meet. Okay, so the definitions are kind of related. Moist is a describing word. So I'm going to put ADJ for adjective. Okay, if something's moist, it's kind of wet. It's not like dripping wet, but it's not dry either. So if you think about brownies when they come from the oven, we don't want them too dry or too crispy. We want them kind of moist, right? So they have a little bit of juiciness to them. Now, a ploy is a thing. A ploy is a sneaky plan. So let's say you want your parents to take you out for ice cream, or you want a later bedtime. If you start giving them lots of compliments, oh, mommy, you're so pretty. Oh, daddy, you're so awesome. Oh, mommy, what can I help you with? Sometimes if you give them too many compliments, they're going to see right through it, and they're going to know that it's a ploy. It's a sneaky plan to get what you want. Maybe if I say lots of nice things to mommy, she will let me stay up late, or daddy will let me get ice cream. Okay, so a ploy is a sneaky plan. A point can be a thing. It could be a sharp edge, like the point on a pencil or the point on an arrow. But it can also be a verb. You can point to something, right? You take your finger and you point it in a certain direction. Spoil is a verb. If you spoil something, you make it go bad. Or it could just mean to go bad. So for instance, if you pour yourself a glass of milk and then you leave the carton on the refrigerator, on the counter all night, that milk is going to spoil. It's going to go bad because milk is supposed to stay cold. It's supposed to stay in the refrigerator. If you have leftover chicken in your fridge for a week or two, it's going to start to smell bad. It's going to spoil. So to spoil is to go bad. When we talk about parents spoiling their kids, usually what that means is they give them too much, or they let them get away with too much, and then the kids might get bratty, right? So they get spoiled, and then they don't go bad like an old piece of chicken, but they start showing bad behaviors, like maybe they get too whiny or bratty, that sort of thing. Tin foil is a noun. That's what we use to wrap food. It's like that sheet, that very thin sheet of metal. It comes in a roll, and you can use it to wrap food. Topsoil is also a noun. If you're planting a garden, you're going to want some rich topsoil. You can't just use the dirt in your backyard. You're going to want to supplement that with some rich topsoil, because that's going to have lots of nutrients that will help your plants grow. Okay, so over here, N stands for noun, person, place, or thing. V stands for verb. Those are our action words. And ADJ stands for adjectives. Those are our describing words. The last thing I want to label here are compound words. Do you remember what those are? You take two words and glue them together to make a new word, right? So we have a couple here. We have the word cowboy. A cowboy could be a boy who takes care of cows, but we use that word even for men who take care of cows. Okay, so that's a compound word. Tin foil. That's a foil sheet that's been made out of tin. Topsoil. That's a type of soil that you find on the top, on the surface. Okay, so all of these words that I circled are compound words. Compound words. You're going to see more of them when you get to page 164. Because you're going to be doing some sorting. You're going to look at the words in the box. And if you can break them into two smaller words like cow and boy or tin and foil, you're going to put them here under compound words. If you can't break them into two words, put them here, not compound words. Okay, so you have to be careful. Just because a word has two syllables doesn't mean it's a compound word. If we look at a word like broiling, I'm broiling some chicken in the oven. Broiling, it has two syllables, but it doesn't have two words in it. Broil is a word. Ing is not a word. It's an important word chunk, but it can't stand by itself. So when you are looking for compound words, make sure they are made up of two parts that can stand by themselves. All right, that's all I have for you today. Good luck, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.